Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Cover to Cover. You're here with Mo.
And Andrea.
And today we want to talk about pop culture influences on literature and taking a closer examination of friendship. But first, we want to, again, look at literature through a statistical lens. And one way to do this is to quantify metrics by state. For example, what is the most popular author by state?
So readers may disagree with some of these results, but the website Business Insider has pulled a map together displaying the most famous author from every state. You'll see many well-known authors from Nathaniel Hawthorne to Dan Brown, and you might even see some surprises in there. So did you check these out?
Yes. So my biggest surprise was John Grisham. Of course, you guys might have heard of him. He was born in Jonesboro, Arkansas, which for me is crazy because I grew up in Arkansas and I've been to Jonesboro many times. And how do they not have 20 banners in every place you go telling you that John Grisham was born there?
And he was also from, he was known for Texas, right?
Yes.
That was his state. So yeah, some of these states have some really cool authors, and so you guys can be representing in Maine because you guys got Stephen King. Yay! And Nora Roberts has Maryland, and and Ernest Hemingway was Illinois, which I was surprised. I thought he would have been Florida.
Yeah, so I guess it's an interesting metric they do it on because so many authors have lived in so many places.
Yeah.
But I was really happy to see my boy, Bill Bryson, getting some love from Iowa. He is a prolific travel adventure writer, and Iowa is such a great place to represent him because it's very just like fields and nature. But I was intrigued about the choice for Texas, who was Catherine Ann Porter, who I had never heard of, and you had heard of her before. So she's more of an old school author. She wrote a lot of short stories, poetry, and that sort of genre, but I had never heard of her, and she's our most well-known author, so
you will have to check her out.
The more you know, I suppose.
So the Business Insider also created a map displaying the most popular books set in every state, and they pulled popular books from To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee to Twilight by Stephanie Myers. So did you guys get some surprises? Did you get some surprises from this map?
I did. Once again, I had heard of No Country for Old Men because, of course, it was a movie and then a remake recently with the Coen brothers, but I did not know that it was a novel by Cormac McCarthy. So now I have to add that to my list because I haven't read it. And I live here.
Okay, yeah, I still haven't gotten over the movie yet, so I'm going to have to ease into the book. Yeah, I need a quick second.
And then there were a couple not surprises that happened. Of course, the most famous book set in Kansas was The Wizard of Oz. Yeah. So that's amazing.
That's a great one. And Washington is known for the Twilight series. So how do you feel about that, Washington?
I don't think they're real happy. I think they'd much rather be in Alabama's shoes with a really well-renowned book such as To Kill a Mockingbird. Yeah. So I feel like they're getting a little flack about that.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that Utah got the 19th wife. So
might be some shade in there assigning that book to Utah.
Yeah, I wonder what the thought was behind Business Insider and that. Was it an algorithm?
Yeah, I don't know. If you guys live in Utah and you can provide for us a better example, we are happy to substitute
Or if you want to write to Business Insider on your thoughts on that.
And I had a thought about this map, and we were talking about this. It would be such an interesting endeavor to do, the way that people... They want to visit every state, so they have this map where they track every state that they've been to. You could do this with this list. Visit every state by reading the book that is most popular set in that state.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing that you could do with that too is so you've seen those maps with like the license plates on it, right, as a decoration. So you could put the book covers from, each of those states.
I love that. Yeah. That's like a fun decoration for your house or your bookshelf, and also a really cool endeavor that you could absolutely complete.
Bucket list in your bedroom.
Doing that
really cool,
for sure.
Yeah.
So at certain times in history, the hype and success of books really do make this sort of pop culture thing happening. And Twilight is a really great example of that. It's made it to Washington's most well-known book, and it's a really interesting thought to think about how literature does confront pop culture. It's a tricky line to walk with referencing pop culture in books, but it can seriously date the book, or it can make it a really classic work, such as To Kill a Mockingbird. So either way, we wanted to know what are the most references used in literature.
So as it turns out, the song Hey Jude by the Beatles is the most frequently mentioned song in literature. From Stephen King to Toni Morrison, their characters are jamming to the Beatles, though Elvis is the most mentioned singer or band seen in literature.
And just for good measure, we would like to mention that Star Wars is, of course, the most referenced movie in literature.
It absolutely is, and that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's everywhere. Of course, it's very saturated, and we're kind of in this bubble right now where we're moving more and more into pop culture being a part of fiction, especially with this wave of young adult books that live in this gray area of being young adult, but also for adults, and just so much going on in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a cool thing in like The Handmaid's Tales, they were kind of pulling a lot from like 80s pop culture, and it really kind of set you in this fun time period until, you know, things got a little hectic.
That one did get a little crazy.
Yeah.
But a really great example of this right now is Ernest Cline's Ready Player One, because his entire book is based 100% on pop culture. So when you read it, you're living kind of in all those things, all this video game stuff that you're used to now, like World of Warcraft and Mario Brothers and all this stuff. But maybe in like 30 years when you look back on it, it'll be this sort of bubble of nostalgia for you to look back on.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where things are happening.
Well, in Ready Player One, it's kind of set in the 80s, right? So it's got a lot of like Back to the Future and Mario Brothers and lots of cool things like that, which I think is so cool. It is a huge nostalgia trip.
Yeah. And then, of course, with true crime being such a really popular genre right now, there's a lot of things that are going on in the media that we're seeing put into literature that, of course, we're going to be able to hold on to forever. And maybe some of those things get solved later and those books will hit the bestseller list.
For sure. Well, for right now, guys, we're going to take a quick break. But when we get back, we're going to tell you why it's great to revisit children's literature as adults. And we've got some housing goals for you all literary lovers out there. So we'll be right back.
Well, in case you guys are looking for somewhere to live, there are 2 author homes up for sale that could be yours.
The home that inspired Stephen King's novel Pet Sematary is up for sale, and I have some feelings about that. The 113-year-old house in Maine is being listed for sale for $255,000. His website states that the King family was renting the house in 1979 when his daughter's cat was hit by a truck. Some local kids had created a pet cemetery in the woods behind the house where they buried the cat, and King recognized the cemetery for all of its creepy glory, and a classic was born.
And fans of E.B. White will be shelling out just a little bit more money for his home that has hit the market. The 40-acre property where he lived for 48 years and which Charlotte's Web was inspired by is also in Maine and can be purchased for the low, low price of $3.7 million.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to take E.B. White's home over Stephen King's. Well, with my millions, of course.
With your millions, you can move to there. And then everyone who wants to throw a really amazing Halloween party can just buy the house with a creepy pet cemetery, because that's, of course, a thing to do.
Or, yeah, we'll just get both, right?
Yeah, we'll take them both. Thank you. It is a really interesting concept, though, to think of moving into an author's home because there's so much history there, especially with E.B. White's home. It was inspiring for Charlotte's Web, and there are so many elements actually directly from the home that you can read about in Charlotte's Web. In his barn, there's the famous opening where we were discussing Charlotte's actually still there.
Yeah,
she still lives there.
In my heart of hearts, I believe that Charlotte is still there, and there is also a web just to look upon.
And you can't cross the web, so the barn is not usable. And also, Charlotte has grown in size by 300-fold, so she is enormous and terrifying, but she can be your new roommate.
It's going to be great. And for my cows, I will have the fanciest butter for my parties there. I'm thinking of making like butter of all of the characters.
I
just
love
like
it.
in the Iowa State Fair.
Yeah, you'll make the cow for next year. That'll be all you.
That will totally be me. But y'all, okay, crazy story. Speaking of buying houses from authors. Okay, so this couple bought a house that recently, okay, well, actually not recently. Well, Chuck Palahniuk had lived in before, and Chuck Palahniuk left them a note in the attic, and so they were doing some remodeling on their house, and they were like, oh, hey, here's a cool box of like backgammon, and
Did
here's
the
like a
note
note.
say the first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about
Oh
Fight
my
Club?
gosh, why did it not say that? Now I'm disappointed. Why did you give this to me? I was all excited about this story.
Well, what did it say? What was like the gist of it?
It was like, oh, we hope you enjoy this home as much as we did, and this home was owned by like a lovely couple before us that raised their kids, and this is our experience with it. So have a great time. By the way, I'm Chuck Palahniuk.
That's so sweet.
So crazy. So crazy.
I also love that they were in the attic and they were like, oh, just hanging out in the attic. Oops, found this little thing. Let's read this.
Yeah.
And then they went to the pet cemetery and we never saw them again.
Oh my gosh.
Well, as you know, Charlotte's Web and other great books by E.B. White, thinking about them brings back really good memories for me, and I bet for you guys too. And we all have our favorite kids' books. And we always think about them fondly, but do we ever go back and reread them when we're well into our adulthood? Because as it turns out, it might actually be a good idea to revisit those favorite works.
The joys of reading children's literature later in life can be complex. While you think books are simple and wholesome on the outside, a reread later in life may help you appreciate the nuances a bit more. Author Bruce Handy has written a book chronicling his adventures of rereading childhood classics and what he got out of it. His book, Wild Things, The Joy of Reading Children's Literature as an Adult, takes on an exploration from Goodnight Moon to Charlotte's Web and everything in between.
I love this idea of revisiting children's literature because things like Charlotte's Web and Where the Wild Things Are, they're very, very childlike on the surface. Oh, it's a story of this kid and they're on an adventure and they're making friends. But there's a deep-seated darkness to why they're making friends with farm animals and imaginary creatures that take them to scary lands where they might get murdered. And it has to deal with like depression and loneliness and the difficulties of friendship. And so as a kid reading those, maybe you pick up on them subtly, but going back and reading through them as an adult, you really feel the deep, dark nuances of that.
Yeah, for sure. And now I'm realizing, like, as a kid, maybe I picked up some dark books because I was reading, like, A Series of Unfortunate Events and The Giver and some of these other books. And then even some of the ones that were happy, like you said, like I read a lot of Roald Dahl. And you think about his books, like Matilda, and truly she's unwanted. And
she's an unloved child.
Yeah, and she's finding this escape in books and doing crazy stuff with her mind. And so some of those, and then also Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I mean, he is in a family living in poverty, and then there's like some creepy guy coming around the corner who's like, hey, I'll help you out. And he's got trust issues, man. So there's some crazy ones. And then I love how they also, like, authors pull a lot and put them in children's books, and they might have pushback from their editors and from their publishers, but these authors are still putting these works out there, like Daniel Handler or Lemony Snicket. Like, he puts in a lot of adult words, and I think that's great for kids. And then also in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, one of the funny things that I thought was cool was, you know, they have their tickets, all of their 6 tickets, and like, so they're like, okay, well, all the kids found their tickets already, their golden tickets, like the contest is over. And then they like come back and realize that the last ticket that had been found was like counterfeit from Paraguay. And okay, I'm Paraguayan, so I know like that Paraguay is like super well known for like counterfeit and bootlegging and piracy. So I think it's really cool that they just like
they teach you young where you can go to buy your counterfeit Louis Vuitton.
If you want the Louis Vuitton with 1 T, or Gucci is totally spelled with an H, y'all.
Go to Paraguay.
Yeah, exactly. But I love that that authors are kind of bringing in these darker themes and some of these things to learn early on in life in a really subtle way.
The Wizard of Oz is a really great example of that too, because on the surface it's the shiny, literally with her shoes, story of a girl who's just trying to find her way home, and she's making friends with like a ragtag group of people. But under the surface of that, Dorothy was deeply depressed and also feeling unwanted by her family, so much so that she had to go to this other land to find out that the only place that she actually wanted to be was home. And it took her all of this strife to get there. And it also teaches you a lot about friendship, because she could not have made it back home with her friends. And so there's a lot about the nature of friendships and opening your heart and relying on other people to help you get there. So those are really big themes for children, and revisiting those as adults, I think it's deeply touching. So everybody should do that. And let us know in the comments some of your favorite children's books that we should revisit and give a read to. And speaking of some of our favorite authors and children's books, did you guys know that Roald Dahl, author of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, James and the Giant Peach, many other fantastic books, was an avid gardener?
Yeah, in honor of his love for gardening, the English rose breeder David Austin Roses crossbred a special rose for Dahl. The Roald Dahl rose produces a peach hue bloom.
Okay, and so I was reading about this story, and it is a beautiful peach rose, which we showed you a picture of, and it's amazing. And the story there is that his wife, in honor of his would-be 100th birthday last year, he would have been 100, but he died in 1990, she went to this famous rose gardener and asked if he would do this in honor of Roald Dahl. So the gardener went back and read through all of his books and was so inspired by James and the Giant Peach that he wanted to do a peachy-colored rose, and he bred it specially for Roald Dahl, and now we can all have a piece of him in our garden forever if we choose to.
But for real, like, anyone can do like a painting of an author or like something cool, but he's chosen like the most sophisticated thing. He's like, oh, I'll just read this rose.
A special rose just for you.
So cool.
So beautiful.
So a nod to you.
Well, and Roald Dahl created some fascinating characters and relationships that we enjoy examining. And an author's job really does require a lot of those close examinations of friendships and such so that they can hone their insights on human nature. And some of the best influences and guides of friendship that we do have came from our favorite novels.
Irving Stone, from his novel Clarence Darrow for the Defense, says of friendship, "There are no faster or firmer friendships than those formed between people who love the same books." And we say we agree.
Of course. And author Jessie Scott summed up friendship really nicely when she said, "Friends are the family that you choose."
Aww, that's so sweet.
And it's so true. And this idea of friendships in literature, we have already said this, but you really do learn so much about the way friendships should be, and also the way that friendships should not be, don't you think?
Absolutely. Some of my favorite friendships in literature, so there's Elizabeth Bennet and Charlotte Lucas, and I think they're just such a cute pair, because I mean, they're real different, and they definitely have different tastes in guys. So I just think
make it work.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious. Elizabeth's like, "Oh, that guy's disgusting. He's gross. No way I'm ever marrying him." "Oh, but you can have him, totally great for you."
And Charlotte's like, "He's mine?"
Yeah, those are best friend goals right there. If you can make that work, yes. But then there are some crazy friendships in literature, in A Picture of Dorian Gray.
Yes.
You know, Dorian Gray and Lord Henry, okay, yeah, they're both equally messed up, so maybe it works, actually.
The definition of toxic friendship, though, for sure.
Yeah.
So you can learn a lot about what you don't need in life while learning about what is good enough for you. If it's good enough for your favorite heroine, it's good enough for you and you deserve it. And in honor of those friendships, we wanted to kick off the weekend with a top 10 list.
Yes, so we want to pay homage to heroes' best friends, the sidekicks. So enjoy, y'all.
Heroes are great and all, but let's hear it for the sidekicks. Here are our top 10 sidekicks in literature.
Number 10, Little John, from Robin Hood and His Merry Men. Little John has been running alongside his pal Robin Hood in many iterations since the 1800s. Ever faithful, sometimes funny, and always there for Robin Hood, a true friend.
Number 9, Tinkerbell, from Peter Pan. Tinkerbell is a small fairy who tinkers and mends things as necessary. She is also one of Peter Pan's closest friends, and a homegirl guards him heavily. Though she can be volatile at times, she has a pure heart and loves her friends deeply. A great fairy to have in your corner.
Number 8, Sancho Panza from Don Quixote. Sancho acts as Don Quixote's squire and travels with him throughout the novel. He is full of wit and witticisms and is always quoting proverbs at just the right time. Sancho is an everyman's character and gives us all something to be grounded by.
Number 7, Friday, from Robinson Crusoe. Friday is named as such because that is the day he met Robinson Crusoe. Since the two could not communicate, Crusoe named him such. He was an apt sidekick who was helpful at every turn. The term, his girl Friday, is an homage to him and how capable he was.
Number 6, The Squad from The Wizard of Oz. Scarecrow, Lion, Tin Man, and Toto. Dorothy was fortunate enough to have a squad that even she'd have trouble picking between. Dorothy was unstoppable on her adventure. They always had her back and helped her tackle every obstacle in her way.
Number 5, Tom Sawyer from Huckleberry Finn. These two guys swap back and forth with being sidekicks throughout their adventures. Tom Sawyer became Huck's best friend as they journeyed down the Mississippi River. Tom is always using books as a reference for how things should go and helping Huck out in every capacity along the way.
Number 4, Inigo Montoya and Fezzik, from The Princess Bride. Wesley won over Inigo Montoya and Fezzik from their evil overlords after defeating them in a fight. Giving them the opportunity for redemption by helping him on his quest, the two were able to show their true colors and become very faithful companions.
Number 3, Hermione Granger and Ron Weasley from Harry Potter. Now, it's debatable to put them on this list since they're not technically just sidekicks. However, we're giving them a nod. Harry Potter would have died in Book 1 if it hadn't been for his reliance on these two. Hermione with her wit and aptitude, and Ron with his fierce loyalty. Can you say friend goals?
Number 2, Dr. Watson from Sherlock Holmes. Watson is the man who made Holmes the myth. Documenting their adventure is just one way Watson is the ultimate sidekick. He's there to keep Holmes humble, introduce him to the human side of life, and ground him in their endeavors. Not to mention, he's more personal half of this duo. Without Watson, there is no Sherlock Holmes.
And number 1 goes to Samwise Gamgee from The Lord of the Rings. Samwise Gamgee once said, "There's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for." This is a testament to his character, his commitment, and his heart throughout the entire Lord of the Rings series. Samwise kept his head on straight and stayed focused on the mission at hand. He loved fiercely and literally carried Frodo when he needed it. Middle-earth would be a far darker place without the likes of Samwise, and life would be just a little bit paler.
That is our top 10 sidekicks in literature.
All right, well, we hope you guys liked our top 10 sidekicks. So let us know in the comment who your favorite sidekicks are.
Yes, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Mo.
I'm Andrea.
And we will, of course, be back on Monday, August 14th at 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Central Time. So until then, keep reading, writing, and being awesome. I know we will.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye.